set schedules and everything else. I guess my wild days are over, and as I said before, after traveling 3,000 miles with the family in the car, I can honestly say it is great to be back. And when we left off, we were looking at a mini sermon series, which was, as I said before, one long sermon just broken up in 3 days. We began called The Spark, looking at the spark inside you. And we began the first week by saying the old saying that is true, that it only takes a spark to get a fire going. And as you can see now in Colorado, in Loveland, Colorado, where Group Work Camp is located, there's literally fires now around that area. So we want to keep them in our thoughts and prayers. And that spark is that little thing deep inside of you. You know, your spark, your passion, your talent. That thing inside of us that we love doing. And when we do it, it gives us life. It gives us energy, exercising, fishing, playing music, sewing, cooking, listening to others, organizing, teaching, helping others in their time of need, gardening, whatever it is, that when you do it, you get excited. It brings you life. It gives you life. That is your spark. And each of us has one. But some of us struggle how to use it. Everything I mentioned and many, many more can be used to glorify God and change the lives of people around us. I mean, seriously, you tell me your passion and I will give you a practical, sensible way you can use it to connect people to the love of Jesus Christ. I can. And we have discovered in Scripture principles or instructions, if you will, of how to use that spark. And this morning I asked if you'll turn to me as I read it in the baptismal waters, but I want to read it again, the 3rd chapter of Matthew, beginning with the 13th verse, as we look again intently at Jesus' baptism. Because I believe that when we examine the baptism of our Savior Jesus Christ, we will discover 4 principles that will help us be faithful to our spark. Matthew 3:13. When Jesus came from Galilee to the Jordan to be baptized by John, but John tried to deter him, saying, I need to be baptized by you, and do you come to me? The first principle I think we can find is when we are faithful to our spark, we might not feel worthy. I mean, John tried to deter Jesus because he didn't feel worthy. And how many of us, when we are truly honest with ourselves, don't feel worthy? Coming off vacation, I'm jumping in this morning deep, right off the bat. And speaking of that, next week is Father's Day. We'll be kicking off our 2nd annual baseball theme series. Bob took me out to the ball game, plus special guests for our dads. Don't miss it. Okay, back to the message. I mean, in that sober moment in life, when we begin to peel away the layers of the onion that we call ourselves, how many of us don't feel worthy? We don't feel worthy to be loved. How many of us don't feel like anyone can accept us or love us if they knew the real person inside? How many of us, because of something in our past, feel inadequate of the intimate relationship with anyone here on earth, especially an intimate relationship with the one who died for my sins? I mean, Jesus tells John and tells each and every one of us who has ever felt inadequate that we have it all wrong. We are worthy. We are lovable. We are desired. Jesus, in that moment, in that brief exchange with John, validates and accepts us into his kingdom as one of his children. Jesus says you are worthy. You are valuable. You are desired. And it says it loud hear anything I say this morning, hear this. If that's you, God thinks you're worthy. I think you're worthy. And God's children need that spark inside you. When you can begin to see yourself as God sees you, as we see you, then your spark will take off. I guarantee it. Verse 15. Jesus replied, "Let it be so now. It is proper for us to do this to fulfill all righteousness." Then John consented. The second thing is being faithful to our spark is a progression. It's a natural progression. There's a natural flow of progression to it. There's a larger picture that we're willing to see at the time, but we can't see it. Over time, but we can't see it right then. You see, John had no idea what Jesus would accomplish, or what Jesus' ministry would encompass for him in that time, and for the generations and generations, and for all eternity. John didn't know Jesus would save all humanity. When we have a passion, a spark, a gift, a talent for something, we don't go from listening to the radio and a love of music to playing a sold-out arena in a week. It takes time. It takes time. It takes mistakes. It takes mistakes. It takes falling down and getting bruised and brushing yourself off and continue to keep going. And when anything takes time, I found that we, as my generation and the generations that have come after mine, I found that we become impatient. We live in a world where everything is instant. We drive and we need to go from zero to hero in a week. If something takes a month, that's way too long for us. Just like learning any craft, learning to follow Jesus takes some progression. It takes time. It takes mistakes. It takes falling down and brushing yourself off. I had a dear friend of mine show up at my church one Sunday. His desire was to work on his relationship with Jesus Christ, as he had just become a new father. And after the first Sunday, I didn't see him the next Sunday, so I called him up. And he explained that going to church just didn't work for him. And I said, "Well, how can you tell in 1 week?" And he said, "Well, I still use the F word, and I still cuss around my kid. I can't be doing that. So I went to church and still cuss the same the next week as I did before." And I replied, "Look, I've known you since 2nd grade. You cussed all the time in 2nd grade. And I think even God Almighty might need a little more than 7 days on that one. And me and you can work on this cussing thing. But I'll bet you a steak dinner, as you work on your relationship with Jesus Christ, I guarantee your vocabulary will begin to change." There's a natural progression. But when we follow our spark, when we follow our passion, when we follow our gift, we will begin to change even when we cannot see the bigger picture. Verse 16. "And as soon as Jesus was baptized, he went up out of the water, and at that moment heaven was opened, and he saw the Spirit of God descending like a dove and alighting on him." Brings us to our third point. When we are faithful to our spark, to our passion, that thing burning inside of us, the supernatural power of God shows up. God is present. There's an invitation for Christ to live inside of us, to work through us, to continue to add fuel to that fire that was ignited by that spark. We all know these people, the people who live their life out of their spark, their passion, their gift, their talent. As they radiate light around them, everyone in and we use our spark. Verse 17. And a voice from heaven said, "This is my Son, whom I love. With him I am well pleased." The fourth thing, when we are faithful to our spark, there is a rejoicing in heaven and on earth. We live our life out of our spark, out of our passion, out of our talent, out of our gift. When we do that, there is a rejoicing in heaven and on earth. God rejoices when we nurture that spark. We just witnessed the baptism of a young lady. We celebrate, we rejoice with her family. And it's not just something we do in the church to our children. It's an outward visible sign of what's going on the inside. We rejoice with her as she dedicated her life to learning and following and living her life as one of Jesus' disciples. We celebrate as a faith family with her family because there is another celebration going on as well. There's a celebration in God's kingdom as Christ celebrates the decision she made for her life. You see, we don't know or have any way of knowing how her spark will affect those around her, but God does. And He is rejoicing. I don't know if I should say, but I'm going to. None of you might not have known, but Alyssa is terrified of water. That little girl overcame her fear, her terrorized fear, to follow Jesus Christ, to enter to the water that she is so afraid of, to follow her spark. And if that doesn't touch you, if that doesn't inspire you, follow her lead. Fan your spark into a flame. She overcame a fear for just a brief moment to follow her heart, to invite Christ inside of her, to fan that flame and that spark. And when you and I are faithful to our spark, we will feel worthy as we journey through the progression of life, as the supernatural power of God is revealed to us. And then there will be rejoicing in heaven and on earth. Find your spark. Fan that spark into a flame. And let the light of God radiate through your life to those around you. You pray with me.